Have you ever had a conversation where you left thinking, how did they not understand what I meant? Or maybe you've worked with someone and thought, why are they making this so complicated? Or maybe, if we're honest, you've occasionally looked around and thought, am I surrounded by idiots? Hello, and welcome back to Bookworm. Today we're diving into Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erikson, a book that suggests something surprising. Most communication problems don't happen because people are stupid. They happen because people think differently. Erikson explains that human behavior often follows predictable patterns. Some people are direct and decisive. Others prefer harmony and stability. Some people talk constantly and think out loud. Others analyze everything carefully before speaking. The problem is that we tend to assume everyone processes the world the same way we do. And when they don't, we interpret their behavior as irrational, frustrating, or difficult. But what if the issue isn't intelligence at all? What if it's personality? This book introduces a simple but powerful framework that divides behavior into 4 types, often represented by colors: red, yellow, green, and blue. Each type has its own strengths, motivations, and communication style. And once you start recognizing these patterns, something interesting happens. People who once seemed confusing suddenly make more sense. Stay with me until the end, because one of the most useful insights in this book explains how simply adjusting the way you communicate can completely change how people respond to you. If you enjoy exploring psychology, communication, and the patterns behind human behavior, like the video, subscribe to Bookworm and tell me in the comments, do you think personality differences cause most misunderstandings? Now let's go deeper into Surrounded by Idiots.
So today, we're going to dive into a book with a title that, let's be honest, probably made you nod your head a little bit. Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erikson. This whole explainer is really about unlocking a super simple but really powerful way of looking at why people do the things they do. And the goal here? Well, it's to help all of us communicate a little better and, maybe feel a little less surrounded by, well, you get it. Let's jump in. I mean, seriously, have you ever been in a meeting or at a family get-together trying to explain something that seems so simple, so obvious to you, and the other person is just looking at you with a blank stare? You just can't get through. It's so easy to just throw your hands up and think, what is wrong with this person? Am I speaking a different language? It's a feeling we all know, that deep frustration. But what if the problem isn't that they're an idiot? What if it's something else completely? And this right here, this is the big idea of the whole book. It argues that those people who drive you crazy, they're not idiots. They're just different. They're wired differently than you are. They process information differently. They listen differently. They make decisions in a completely different way. So the problem isn't a lack of intelligence. Not at all. It's a fundamental clash of communication styles. And those styles come from behavior patterns that are just baked into who they are. Now this is the real game changer. It doesn't matter how clearly or logically you think you're laying something out. Every single word you say gets passed through this filter, the other person's personality filter. It's colored by their biases, their past experiences, and their core way of seeing the world. So what you say is almost never exactly what they hear. So the question becomes, how do you get past that filter? Well, the key, according to Erikson, is to stop trying to force them to understand your language and start speaking theirs.
To do that, the book gives us this really simple, really practical tool. It's based on something called the DISC model, which has been around for a while. It breaks down all of human behavior into 4 main types, and each one gets a color: red, yellow, green, and blue. Just think of these colors as a kind of mental shortcut, a basic map to help us start decoding the people around us, and maybe, just maybe, figure ourselves out a little bit too.
All right, first up, let's talk about the reds. Oh, you know these people. They're the drivers, the alphas. They're the ones who just take charge and make things happen. If you think of any group or any project, the red is probably the engine, the one pushing everything forward. They get their energy from challenges, from being in control, and from getting results fast. This table really nails down what a red is all about, so let's walk through it. First, they are absolutely dominant. They are natural-born leaders who just instinctively take over. They see a hill, they want to charge up it. They love a good challenge. They're also incredibly ambitious. They are laser-focused on the finish line, on getting that result. This is what makes them so decisive. They don't mess around. Because of this, they're naturally fast-paced. Their motto is pretty much, why wait till tomorrow when we can do it right now? They have almost zero patience for long, drawn-out discussions or any kind of delay. And all of this leads to them being, well, blunt. They care more about getting the job done than they do about sugarcoating things. So they just say what they think, straight up. Now, they don't usually mean to be rude or hurtful. It's just that, from their point of view, beating around the bush is a total waste of time. But this is also where their biggest weakness lies. That dominance can easily tip over into being domineering. Their ambition can make them steamroll over other people's ideas. And that bluntness, it can really hurt people's feelings, and the red might not even notice they did it.
This is such a perfect picture of a red in action. Got a problem with your landlord who won't fix the leak? You send the red. They aren't afraid of a fight. In fact, they kind of get a thrill out of it. For a red, just sitting around doing nothing is like a form of torture. Idle time is wasted time. They're always thinking, always planning, always moving. Now, this is fantastic when you need someone to take action and get results, but it also means they can get incredibly frustrated with people who need to process things, who need a minute to think. To a red, that careful thinking can look a lot like indecision or even weakness.
All right, so moving on from the fire of the red, let's talk about the sunshine of the yellows. If reds are the drivers, yellows are the inspirers. They are the social butterflies, the big idea people, the ones who are always the life of the party. What really motivates them is connecting with people, getting recognized, and just having fun.
Yellows are all about relationships, excitement, and new experiences. You can see it in their traits. They are incredibly inspiring. Their natural optimism is infectious, and they can be super persuasive. That can get you excited about an idea you didn't even care about 5 minutes ago. They are intensely social. They thrive on meeting new people and can strike up a conversation with literally anyone. They're also very creative and spontaneous. Their brains are just constantly buzzing with new ideas, and they love to jump from one exciting new thing to the next. And, as anyone who knows a yellow will tell you, they are very, very talkative. They're expressive, they're open, and they think out loud. But here's the other side of the coin. That creativity and love for new things can mean they don't always follow through. They're amazing at starting projects, but finishing them? Not so much. And because they're so talkative, they can be really poor listeners. They're often just waiting for their turn to talk. Their need to be liked can also make them shy away from tough but necessary conversations.
This is the person who you could tell, it's pouring rain, everything is ruined. And they'll say, yeah, but think about how great the plants will look tomorrow. Their optimism is basically a superpower. They walk into a room and just light it up with their energy. They have more friends and contacts than anyone you know. The potential downside of this, though, is that their focus on staying positive can sometimes mean they just ignore or brush off serious problems. And that can be really frustrating for the people around them who are trying to be realistic. Okay, next up we have the most common personality type of all of them, the greens. These are the supporters. They're the calm, steady, reliable people that really form the foundation of any group, any family, any company. They're motivated by feeling secure, by stability, and by making sure everyone is getting along. What you really need to understand about greens is their deep need for harmony and security. Looking at their traits, you see they are incredibly supportive. They are amazing listeners, the best of all the colors by far. They make fantastic team players. They're also very stable. They're calm, they're patient, and they don't easily get rattled. And they're extremely reliable. You can always count on a green. But that desire for reliability means they also prefer security, and they can be very, very resistant to change, especially sudden change. And most of all, they are just fundamentally kind. They care so much about how other people are feeling. They're the ones who will always put the group's needs before their own. Now, their biggest weakness comes directly from that beautiful strength. Their desire to avoid conflict is so strong that they can become really indecisive or even passive-aggressive, because they'd rather say nothing than risk causing a disagreement. And that resistance to change can sometimes hold a team or a project back. Greens are the ones who are happy to just sit back and listen while the yellows and reds take center stage. They don't need the spotlight. They get their sense of purpose from helping and supporting the people they care about. They are, in a very real way, the glue that holds a family or a team together. And because they're so quiet and steady, it's really easy to overlook their contributions until they're not there anymore, and suddenly everything feels a little shaky and out of balance. And that brings us to our final color, the blues. These are the analysts, the perfectionists, the people who need everything to be logical, precise, and in its right place. What motivates a blue is quality, correctness, and pure, simple logic. Blues run on data. As you can see, they're intensely analytical and focused on the details. They are extremely cautious.
They will think and research and then think some more before they make a move. They are very systematic. They love order, rules, and procedures because that's how you ensure quality. And the most important word for a blue is correct. They value facts and accuracy above pretty much everything else. For a blue, the thinking is, if you're going to do something, you might as well do it perfectly. Now, the weakness here is that they can get stuck in analysis paralysis. They get so caught up in gathering all the information that they never actually make a decision. They can also come across as a bit cold or distant because they're so focused on the facts, and they can seem overly critical because they have a natural talent for spotting flaws and errors.
You know this person. You're in the middle of a story, and they'll gently interrupt to say, actually, the statistic is 42.7%. They're not trying to be a know-it-all, it's just that accuracy is incredibly important to them. They're the one who will read the instruction manual from cover to cover before they even open the box. They'll create a detailed spreadsheet for a weekend trip. To other colors, this can seem, well, a little extreme. But for a blue, it's the only logical way to make sure things are done right and to avoid costly mistakes.
Okay, so we've met our cast of characters. We have the fast and furious red, the social and sunny yellow, the calm and steady green, and the precise and analytical blue. And I think it's probably becoming pretty clear how these totally different ways of being can lead to, well, some friction. Let's look at exactly why we clash. A lot of the time, the basic conflict comes down to pace and priorities. It's right here on the screen. On one side, you've got the fast-moving, extroverted reds and yellows. Their whole vibe is, let's do it now, let's just get started. On the other side, you've got the more cautious, introverted greens and blues. Their default setting is, hang on, let's think this through. This difference in speed is a massive source of conflict, especially at work. Imagine a red manager who wants a decision on her desk by the end of the day. She asks her blue employee for a recommendation. Well, the blue's brain just short-circuits. He needs time to gather the data, weigh the pros and cons, and make sure his recommendation is perfect. He feels rushed and pressured. Meanwhile, the red manager is looking at him thinking, why is he dragging his feet? Is he trying to block this? Neither one is right or wrong. Their basic programming is just completely different.
And this right here, this is where things get really messy. The problem starts when we assume that our way of doing things is the right way, the normal way. So a fast-moving red looks at a careful, deliberate green and doesn't see thoughtfulness. They just see someone who's indecisive and weak. A detail-obsessed blue looks at a spontaneous, big-picture yellow and doesn't see creativity. They see a sloppy, disorganized, reckless person. A gentle green looks at a direct red and sees a bully. A fun-loving yellow looks at a quiet blue and sees a boring downer. We stop seeing them as a person with a different style, and we start judging them through the lens of our own color. And that's where the real damage happens.
Okay, so knowing all this is one thing, but what can we actually do about it? This is where this whole model stops being just interesting and starts being genuinely useful. It's not about trying to change your personality. It's about learning how to tweak your communication style just a little bit so you can actually be heard.
This slide is basically the cheat sheet. These are the keys to unlocking better communication with each color. Let's really break them down. If you need to talk to a red, be direct. Do not waste their time with small talk. Just get right to the point. Why? Because they value efficiency. They'll actually respect you for not wasting their time. When you're talking with a yellow, you need to be warm and friendly. Smile, ask them how their weekend was, and then let them talk. Why? Because for them, connection comes first. They build trust through that personal rapport. If you try to jump straight to business, they'll just feel like a number. For a green, the key is to slow down. Be patient. Show them that you genuinely care about them as a person, and gently ask for their opinion. Don't demand it. Why? Because greens need to feel safe and secure. If you push them or rush them, they will just shut down completely. And finally, when you're dealing with a blue, you have to do your homework. Show up prepared. Have your facts, have your data, have a logical argument. Why? Because for a blue, facts are the currency of trust. They need to see that you've thought it through before they'll even consider your idea.
And at the end of the day, this is the secret sauce. Being a great communicator isn't about having one perfect, polished style. It's about knowing yourself, knowing your own color, your own tendencies, your own blind spots, and then having the flexibility to adjust your approach for your audience. It's about consciously choosing to meet people where they are, not forcing them to come to you. It's about speaking their language.
And this really is the most important lesson of all. So often, we go into conversations with the goal of winning, of proving that our way is the right way. But the real goal of communication isn't to be right. The goal is to be effective,
The goal is to connect, is to make sure that what's in your head actually makes it into their head. And when you can shift your focus away from being right and towards simply being understood, everything changes.
So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a question. Think about the people in your life, your boss, your partner, your kids. Think about that one person you just always seem to clash with, where you feel like you're talking to a brick wall. What color do you think they are? And, just as important, what color are you? Based on everything we've talked about today, what's one tiny little adjustment you could make in your next conversation to try and bridge that gap? Which color are you going to try and connect with first? Thanks so much for joining me.
If this book leaves you with one important insight, it's this. Most communication problems are not caused by bad intentions. They're caused by different perspectives. Thomas Erikson's framework reminds us that people approach the world through different behavioral styles. Some prioritize results and speed. Others focus on relationships and harmony. Some people thrive on creativity and enthusiasm. Others feel most comfortable with structure and precision. None of these approaches are inherently right or wrong. They're simply different ways of processing information and interacting with the world. But when we assume everyone should behave the way we do, frustration appears quickly. The person who wants quick decisions might see careful analysis as hesitation. The person who values stability might see constant change as chaos. The person who loves discussion might overwhelm someone who prefers quiet reflection. Understanding these differences doesn't just improve communication, it creates empathy. Because instead of asking, why are they like this, we begin asking, how do they see the situation? And when communication adjusts to personality rather than forcing personality to adjust to communication, interactions become easier, workplaces function better, relationships become less tense, and misunderstandings become opportunities to understand someone's perspective. If one part of this framework made you recognize someone in your life, write it in the comments below. Which personality type do you think you are? And if you enjoy exploring books that reveal the hidden patterns behind human behavior, make sure you like the video and subscribe to Bookworm. There are many more fascinating ideas ahead. Until next time, sometimes people aren't difficult. They're just different.